your weekly chat with certified nutrition therapist and lifelong foodie, Kristin Whitaker, coming to you from Utah Natural Wellness with a reminder that your food should serve you. So, let's dish! Welcome to Nourish with Kristin at Utah Natural Wellness, your weekly discussion on different health topics. All right, we're going to dive into our topic today. Today is navigating the food jungle by learning to read labels, and we're just going to touch on a few basic tips. So I don't know if any of you ever watch or pay attention to food labels. Do you read them when you're going down the aisles? Does it determine what you buy, or do you ever look at a label and put it right back on the shelf? So I know if people watch me shop, I must look ridiculous because every once in a while I get hopeful and I pick up a label and I look and my face falls and I put it right back because there's a few things I'm looking for. And not very many products make the cut, sadly. So let's start out with a really basic concept, but maybe you know this, maybe you don't. When you look at the ingredients on a label, they're always listed from the most to the least. So if you pick up a box of cereal that claims to be a healthy part of a complete breakfast, right? Is that the phrase they use? And you look at the ingredients and the first 3 ingredients are sugar and then there's 50 more ingredients, you kind of know that's the majority of that bulk is going to be sweetness. So you might want to put that back. However, if you pick up a cereal as a good looking granola and you're intrigued and you look and sugar is the last ingredient, then you know there's not such a high proportion, and maybe it's something that maybe it's enough sugar that you can tolerate and it will fit into your program or plan. So there's one quick trip. Okay, hi Elizabeth, glad you could come today. Awesome. All right, so ingredients are listed most to least. And then let's talk about serving size. This is one of the dirtiest tricks, and even though I know this, it still trips me up sometimes. The serving size are listed right there on the labels, and they're never real. Do you guys ever pick up the pints of ice cream? Maybe it's Ben & Jerry's, which was my former flame, or Halo Top, or Rebel is one of my favorites right now. And you pick up a pint and you're like, oh, the calories aren't bad and the fat's not bad. This looks great. And then the serving size is like 4 servings per container. And you're like, what? Who are they serving? Because this is like a single serve. In fact, I could eat 4 of these if I had a mind to. So don't be fooled by that. Back in the days when we ate cereal, and I'll admit I still miss it. I still have that cereal addiction that craves it. But most cereal will say half cup or 3/4 cup serving. Have any of you ever stopped at half cup of the fluffy stuff? No. When we ate that one box, maybe a half a box, but that was a serving size. So when you're being mindful of your intake and what you're putting in, look at that serving size. And guys, if you're manufacturing food, get real. Come on, it's not a serving. Okay, so daily value, or DV, on a label is always based off a 2,000 calorie diet. So that might work for you. They kind of took an average, but maybe you're trying to pack in the calories, you're training for a marathon, or you're trying to put on weight and you're running at 25 to 3,000 calories a day, or maybe like so many of us, we're trying to drop a few pounds and you're at a 1,200 to 1,500 calorie. That will mess up the percentages that they're recommending to you. So be aware of that because it might make a difference for you. And then the RDA, recommended daily allowance. Here's something interesting. So I've had people concerned that there's 100% of your vitamin C in this product, there's 100% in this product, and my overdosing on vitamins by eating all these products. So the recommended daily allowance is calculated. It's not an exact science, but this is the bare minimum you need to stay alive, okay? And really you should shoot, that's like, you passed this class, you got a D, you slid by, you'll get credit, that's it, if that makes sense. So you should be shooting for the RDA, but you should be going way higher than the RDA when we're talking nutrients and minerals. So don't take that as gospel truth and that's the cap and that's what you get. You're trying to get above that bar, if that made sense. Okay. Now, our labels, and probably most of us have been trained and we focus and we zero right in on the calorie count. Am I right? How many of you guys are calorie counters? I've stopped counting calories, but I still mentally take note and I just can't get away from it. It's so deeply programmed. So most of these, what people look at revolves around the calories. So hopefully if you get working with real food, you'll get away from that. If you're one of my clients, we would get away from that. But we're all looking for low calorie. So what does low calorie mean? In marketing and labeling, low calorie is labeled as anything less than 40 calories a serving, which is why they cut those serving sizes so small so they can call it low calorie. And here's an interesting thing. Did you know if it's calorie free, what does that mean? Does that mean that you're eating nothing? Well, calorie free actually means it has less than 5 calories per serving. So you can still have some calories in there and it can still be called calorie free. Hi, Christy. Glad you could make it. That's awesome. Okay, moving on to the frees, let's look at fat-free and sugar-free, which I used to look for those labels too because it meant free food, I could eat it and it wouldn't count for anything, right? No, it still has an impact on your body and most likely not a good one. So I remember seeing that fat-free label is on a bag of Twizzlers and being in college and being like, yeah, I can eat all the Twizzlers I want, they're fat-free. Okay. So fat-free and sugar-free label can be used if it has less than half a gram of fat or sugar per serving. So yeah, if, for example, if you're diabetic and every gram counts, you're really watching your insulin, you would want to know that, yeah, sugar-free doesn't necessarily mean sugar-free. I know we all like to look for the low-fat and the fat-free products, and I would hope, given our audience, you guys, I know that you're into whole foods and real foods, that you know better than that. We're not looking for fat-free. We are looking for healthy fats and complete fats. So another discussion we should have one day is a list of healthy fats and what is good in what amounts. But for today, let's steer away from the fat-free and the low-free products, okay? What you do want to look for on a label is 0 trans fats. So luckily, they're now legally required to label trans fats on the label, so that's nice. But even then, the packaging labelers, they're so tricky. There's some additives that have naturally occurring trans fats in them, like mono and diglycerides have trans fat in them, and those won't show up on the label. You just would have to magically know those are there. So pretty much when you see a long list of processed ingredients, you can't rely on the claims on the package. So that's the message there. Sugars, as of 2018, they're legally required to list added sugars. What's an added sugar? Well, it's anything that didn't naturally occur in the ingredients in that product. So, you know, when you were little and your mom got you a big bowl of oatmeal for breakfast, that was my favorite breakfast. Well, because I put a whole cup of added sugar on top of it, brown sugar all over the top of it, stirred it till it was brown. That brown sugar was added sugar. So think of it that way. So I think as a society, we've become a little more sugar savvy. I would hope you are. If you're not, let's talk and bring you up to speed. But the problem is the industry's onto us. So they started breaking sugar up and naming it so many different things that you might not realize how much sugar is in your food. So you'll definitely want to look at added sugar, but also be aware of how much sugar naturally occurs. So for example, if you get a whole bottle of fruit juice and it's a orange juice concentrate, it will say 0 added sugars, but it's still a sugar bomb because it's sugar in the form of fruit juice that's been concentrated down, okay? I used to actually eat a spoonful of that straight. I'm telling you, I'm so reformed, I wouldn't recognize myself. Okay, so words that mean sugar, first of all, anything that says sugar after it. So date sugar, palm sugar, coconut sugar, brown sugar, white sugar. If it says sugar, thank you, they're being honest and upfront. So, but what about the other words? So there's probably 100 names for sugar and I can't go over all of them. I wouldn't remember all of them, but anything with an OSE at the end, so dextrose, maltose, galactose, sucrose, fructose, that's fruit sugar, high fructose corn syrup, that's the worst fruit sugar. So see that OSE and that should trigger sugar in your mind. Syrup, speaking of high fructose corn syrup, anything with syrup on there, and this is a tricky one, they try to make sound healthy, but it's still sugar, like brown rice syrup. Sounds like something that your mom would give you a spoonful of to make you healthy, right? Brown rice syrup, it's sugar. Malt syrup, evaporated syrup, fruit syrup concentrate. Those are all sugars. Then, of course, corn syrup and high fructose corn syrup we mentioned. Honey, I love honey if it's raw and local, but it's still a sugar you need to be aware of. And most likely if it's in your processed food, it's not raw and local. So it's definitely concentrated sugar. And then fruit juice. So you could look at a label and see, well, sugar's listed third on the list, so I know it's not that much, but wait a minute, ding, 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 there's 5 different kinds of sugar in it. That would tip you off of what you're eating. All right, I don't have time to go through all the food additives. A simple rule is if you can't pronounce it and you've never heard of it, maybe steer clear of it, or at least look it up before you put it in your body. Simple rule. But just for an example of what the food industry is doing, let's look at one. Let's look at MSG, or monosodium glutamate. And I know you've heard of this. It's a neurotoxin, it's an excitotoxin. So it does what it says, it gets you excited. It takes food and it amplifies it and it hits those pleasure centers in your brain and it makes you love it. So Doritos aren't just good, Doritos are really good, and you have to have more because of the MSG in them. So MSG is naturally occurring, so I'm not saying all MSG is bad, or you wouldn't be able to eat foods like bone broth and foods that naturally have some in there, and it has a role in your body, but we're not meant to consume the amounts that we get from all directions in all our processed foods all the time. So a lot of people, you may be one of those, let me know. If you get migraines or headaches, you have stomach upset, you might have a sensitivity to MSG. So if you know that, you need to be really diligent. But what the food industry did, knowing people are looking for MSG, is they've split it up and they put it in all different names, so many words. Hope, good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. That's awesome. So when you're looking for monosodium glutamate, keep knocking that cord, look for glutamic acid. Look for hydrolyzed blank protein. It could be soy protein, corn protein, wheat protein, hydrolyzed protein. Hydrolyzed is a good word that you don't want to eat it. Autolyzed is another one. Autolyzed yeast. Yeast is synonymous with MSG. Monosodium salts, L-glutamic acid. There's just so many different names for it. So you might not see MSG on the label, but ding, 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 wait, there's 4 different forms of it. So that's going to be a bomb. That's going to give you a headache, or it would me. So you'd want to steer clear. There's lots of food additives that have been linked or implicated in cancer. For example, BHT is a preservative, or carrageenan is an emulsifier, or sodium nitrates is a flavor enhancer and a preservative. So any of these single compound foods that act as emulsifiers, stabilizers, foaming agents, preservatives, any of these things, probably just want to steer clear of. They're not even sure what they do in our bodies. So all those chemical names, let's not worry about it. Okay, so really quick, just to demonstrate how I look at a food label, I have a few products here. I actually tried to find some junk food to show you, but I didn't have any in the house. Not because I'm the perfect mom, but because my kids must have found it and cleaned it out already. But I was walking in a store and I found a new product, and I found these, I know it's going to be backwards for you, chocolate snackaroons. And I hear macaroon and I go, yes, can I have those? Can I have those? So I pulled up the label, and here we go, the calories, the serving size. The serving size is 2 pieces, which is nice because normally they're trying to trick you. And I'll show you what a piece is. By the way, as a mom, are you guys doing this? I'm on the hunt for snacks for school lunches. That's mostly what I'm looking for. So not just 1, but 2 of these would be the serving size. 140 calories, okay. Fat, 10 grams of fat, so 5 per serving, but I know right away this is coconut based, so it's probably a healthy fat. Well, let's see. The ingredients say organic unsweetened coconut. Awesome. Organic agave syrup. Well, that's a sugar syrup. It's organic, but it's still sugar. Organic cacao, my best friend. Organic coconut sugar, okay, there's another sugar. Organic vanilla, Himalayan pink salt, and that's it. There's no preservatives, there's no hidden things I can't name, no additives. That's pretty simple. So I think to myself, all right, there's 2 kinds of sugar, and if I look per serving, there's 7 grams of added sugar in the form of coconut and agave. Okay, so divided in half, one of these has 3.5 grams of sugar. That doesn't work in my diet personally with what I'm doing, but for my kids, that is a school snack that I'd find acceptable. It kicks the butt when compared to like a fruit snack or something, right? So I actually picked these up because they had another one of my favorite labels on it. Tell me if you're with me. Clearance stickers. It's also my favorite. Markdowns. I'm probably gonna try it. Okay, so yeah, they made the cut for school lunches and I picked up a couple bags. Hi Jen, thanks for coming today. Let's look at something else. I'm always trying to cook for my family with food allergies. My husband's on a really restricted diet right now, so I wanted a sweet potato powder for an instant breakfast I was trying to make. I say instant meaning he can add water and just eat it, but I had to make it from scratch. Nothing is instant at my house anymore. So I had this idea to use a sweet potato base. So I found sweet potato powder, but when I looked online, 3 of them had stabilizers and anti-caking agents and preservatives, and that doesn't work. So this one I found has 100% sweet potato powder, organic, and that's it. So that's the one that I bought. So that's how labels can help you sometimes. Okay, if you guys have questions about labels, shoot them in. Another way you can get more help is if you want to book a grocery tour or we go on a field trip. I sit there and we go through labels together, look at some of your favorite things and read them off and see what works. And you might be surprised, or maybe you already know everything going on and what you're eating. Okay, we're going to move on to what about foods that aren't made out of ingredients? Like they don't have an ingredient list, they're single one. And seeing as I'm like an ambassador for Utah Natural Meat and Milk, I'm especially talking about milk, meat, eggs, things like that. And it's more confusing than you'd think. I spend a lot of time in the store talking about labels and claims with customers, so we're gonna do that. We're starting with some eggs. So this is a carton that someone returned. I did not buy Kroger cage-free eggs. Heaven forbid I cheated on the farm, right? But I have the carton to show you. Inside are these beautiful multicolored eggs from our free-range chickens. But what does that even mean? So let's talk about eggs for a minute. So, which is funny, look when you're in the store, can you tell us again where you got the coconut? If you're talking about this product right here, I actually found this at World Market. I just happened to be there with some friends wandering around and I found that. I love to look for lunch products at TJ Maxx or Ross or those kind of stores because they have lots of exotic organic things. And you can check the labels and find stuff like that. Trader Joe's is another fun place, or Sprouts Market, somewhere something like that might be. But if that was your question, there you go. Okay, so back to eggs. So organic might be the first thing that you look for, and organic is great. It gives us a clue that it doesn't contain the bad things. So what does organic mean? Brace yourself, because this grossed me out, because whatever it says it doesn't have in it means the rest of our food could contain. So ready for this? Organic means it's free of chemical fertilizers, sewage sludge. I'm so glad they saved us from that. Irradiation and genetically modified foods. So in the case of eggs, it means that those chickens weren't fed GMOs and they weren't fed sewage sludge. Whew, so glad to hear that, right? Okay, so organic would be great. However, it doesn't at all denote how they were treated, their quality of life, or from a behavioral point of view. How were those chickens treated? Were they happy, contented chickens being chickens, or were they kind of abused? So vegetarian fed, which I laugh at that label because chickens aren't vegetarian, but that just means the food that they were given was vegetarian free, or vegetarian, yes, free of vegetarians, was free of meat. Why does that matter? Because a lot of these conventional chicken producers, they'll feed ground up chickens, dead chickens, and animal byproducts to the birds as a way of bulking up their food and cutting costs. Gross, right? So vegetarian fed means they weren't fed any of those byproducts. Cage free. Now that sounds beautiful, and that's what these eggs say here, right? Cage free. So you imagine these happy chickens roaming, but that just means that they open the doors and let them go. It doesn't mean there's any less chickens per square foot. They're just all smushed together now. Have you seen footage of these barns that have thousands of chickens in them and they can barely turn around or move and they're all over each other? Hey, that's cage free. Isn't that beautiful? Cage free is, when I think of that, I think of, have you ever been in the halls of a junior high when the bells ring and everyone pours and you can't even move? It's really terrifying. That's how those cage free chickens live every day. So think about that. Okay, there are some labels that maybe tingle your feel goods, but mean pretty much nothing because they're not federally regulated and people will throw them around. So free range doesn't mean anything. It can mean they have a 5-foot porch on the back of this massive hen house, and they could go outside if they wanted to, but they probably don't because of all the obstacles, and there's not enough room for all of them anyway. But hey, now they can say free range. Pasture raised. Pasture raised means that it was on pasture for 120 days of the year, so just less than half the time they're on pasture. However, they don't say what pasture is, so it could be beautiful rolling green hills of pasture, or it could be a parking lot. You just don't know. Natural. I love the word natural. I've used it in my own marketing, but it really doesn't mean anything. They can say whatever they want is natural. No added hormones. What? That sounds a weird one for me to flag for you, right? But the fact is our eggs and our meat and our dairy have hormones in them naturally. So it'd be better for them to say no added hormones. Plus, since 1950, it's been illegal to add hormones to our eggs, to the feed of our egg layers. So there's no added hormones anyway. So they're just trying to sound fancy and catch your attention. Okay, and another one that's common is omega-3. Do you guys pay extra for the brown omega-3 enriched eggs at Costco or wherever? Sounds great, right? And maybe it is. It just means the food they gave those chickens was enriched with either flax or canola. So if you're like me and you're trying to avoid GMOs, maybe that omega-3 wasn't so appealing because they were pounding canola. And it also, again, it has nothing to do with how they were raised or their quality of life. So let's move to meat before we talk about what you do want to find. So meat should be pretty straightforward. You see meat that says grass-fed and all the bells go off and you go, yes, these are happy cows, right? Not necessarily. So grass-fed, you want to look for 100% grass-fed and grass-finished, because they could be on pasture all their life and spend the last month in a feedlot eating corn and animal byproducts and pastry waste and who knows whatever else, but they could still be labeled grass-fed because most of their life they were on grass. And then again, pastured meat, it's only required to be on pasture for 120 days, so we don't know what the rest of the time looks like, and we don't know what their pasture looks like. Hormones, same thing as with the eggs. You want no hormones added. So it can get tricky. And I wish people would just say what it is. In fact, when you're buying salmon, I have seen salmon that says wild caught and it's the brand. Wild is in the brand, but if you look in the tiny little lettering, it says farm raised. Isn't that tricky? Or grass is in the brand that brought you that beef, but they haven't been on grass their whole life. So watch those. What's the safest way to find good meat? Shop local, talk to your farmer, talk to the people who raised it. That's easy for me to say. I work at Utah Natural Meat and Milk, and most of you I've seen on here, I've seen you at the store, so you know better too. But the word needs to get out. It's so much easier to trust what you're putting in your mouth if you know who raised it and cared for it and if they did it the right way. Hi Kaylee, glad you could come. And so 2 thumbs up for Utah Natural Meat. They raise it the right way. But wherever you are, look for a local farmer. If you cannot find them, sadly, they're harder and harder to come by. Ask these questions. I have called companies to ask, hey, how is this raised? How is it treated? Do you give hormones? I've asked these questions, and if they're an honest company, they should be there to answer them. So any more questions on labels, you can come in the store and chat. One more thing, let's talk about that organic label. I get asked all the time if the farm is organic. Well, like any big money commodity, organic is huge in the industry and it's highly regulated, but it's constantly changed. So there's loopholes all the time. So you could be organic and have a certain percentage of grain fed to those cows. You could be organic, but certain pesticides and fertilizers are approved and you can use those, and that list is changing all the time. So even organic is not a fail-safe. And the other problem is it's hugely expensive. So at a small local farm like Utah Natural Meat, it would raise prices even more to have that organic labeling, and it would be labor intensive and cost prohibitive, frankly. So you might find farmers like us that they choose not to jump through the hoops and pay for the organic label. That's fine. It probably means they're a smaller operation and you have more hands-on integrity there. So don't disclaim or disavow food just because it's not organic. That can mean it was still raised organically and probably even more organically than something labeled organic, if that made sense. Okay, Well, wrapping up, I don't see any other questions. I sure thank you guys for joining. So let's get to that announcement I promised you. So I am launching my first group coaching program, and I'm really excited. So because I've had a lot of interest around the ketogenic diet, I'm doing a keto coaching program. So the Keto Total Coaching Experience launches September 9th. There's a 4, 5, or a 6-week option, and it comes with one-on-one coaching and group coaching and so many helps that it will get you going the right way. And within a month, you'll be feeling so much better. You'll have a handle on this, and we'll be working together. So for more information, you can go to my website, nourishwithkristin.com. Come into the store and talk to me. Sign up soon though, because there's a limited number of seats, and we're starting September 9th with or without you. So it's going to be really fun. Keto is a great way to kind of revamp your metabolism. Is it a life sentence? No, but it might be a tool that you use on and off for the rest of your life. So let's talk about that. All right, I'll be in the store today from 2 until 6, like I do every Tuesday and Thursday, and Saturdays 10 until 3. Thank you, Utah Natural Meat and Milk, for sponsoring our broadcast, and thank you everybody for being here. Bye.